Alright, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. I've been coming at you with some MIT AppInventor2, and we're up to our fourth program, I believe, which is a guessing game, which we're going to write two versions of. This first one will be all textual, and we'll add speech to the next example. Okay, so we've built our interface, so I'm going to go over to the blocks editor. And I do want to mention something. We're going to do something new here. Rather than taking all the code and putting it under the buttons where it can get really long, we're going to write our own routines. So I'm going to click here on procedures, and I want this one right here. Okay, so I'm going to write 2 or 3 of my own routines here. And the first one that we're going to write, we're going to give it a name, and we're going to call it generate random number. You should always give it a name that's indicative of what it is you're trying to do. We want to generate a random number here. So what we want to do is we need a random number. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually come up here, and we're going to go to variables, and we're going to have a global variable, which means it's available throughout the entire program, and anybody who wants to can use it, which is what we want. We're going to call this, I don't know, how about random number? In fact, that's not going to be the random number. This could be the guess. We'll just call it guess. Or is that going to be the random number? No, no, that is the random number. So we'll call that rand. How about just random number? That's fine. And we want to initialize it. We want to give it an initial value. So we come over here to math. We just grab that 0, which is a good enough value for it. So you should always, when you're going to create a variable is a location someplace in the computer's memory that might end up changing while the program runs. It might vary, hence the name variable. Okay? So what we want to do then, coming back to our generate random number, is in here, in our generate random number, we want to set this to a random number between 1 and 100. All right? So, let's see. That global rand, we want to come in here, and I've got to remember how to do this, and I apologize. Let's see. I think we can come back into our math. And there we've got random number. I'll hold that down there because that's what actually is what we want. But we want to set our global rand. Where is it? It's not in here. So how do we do that? I've got to remember how to do it. There we go. Set global rand. Hello. So it's that variable right there. We want to set it to a random number between 1 and 100. Now, if that confuses you, think about what we're trying to do here. That's the number that's our secret number, the one that we want to guess. So every time that we generate a new random number, we want that new random number that we generate to be a new number between 1 and 100. Now that I look at this, let's bold these two. It already says it is bolded. I guess the font is just kind of small. 16, that looks a little nicer. And can we make that 16? Yeah, it looks better. All right, so let's come back. All right, so we now have got our routine to generate a random number. That's good. Okay, let's make another procedure. So let's make another one. And this one is going to calculate our guess. All right, so we're going to call it calculate guess. All right, so in other words, what that's going to do is it's going to check to see if our guess was correct or not. All right, so there, when you think about it, when we guess a number in here, there's 3 possibilities. Let's say our number was 57. Okay, let's say that was the secret number, and we guessed 50. Well, then we want a message to come down here that says the number, the guess of 50 was too low, or the number was too low, or something like that. So let's say we guess again, and we guess 60. Then we want a message here that says the number was too high. Then we guess again, and we get it right that says 57, and we said, you guessed the secret number. So there's 3 possibilities. All right? So that's what we've got to account for in here. So I'm gonna come into where it says logic. No, I'm sorry, where I says how about control? That looks good. And we want to put in what's called an if block. All right, and we want to even put more in there than that. So we want an if, and then we want an else if, and then we want an else. Because we have three possibilities. So what we want to say here is if our guess, and what is our guess? Well, we want to get the value for the guess that we just made. So where is that? That would be right here. So if that guess oops, that should click in there. Oh. FTXT enter text. How will it take that? Oh, because it's not complete the way it is. All right. So we have to say basically we're partway there. Okay, we have to check for equality. So let me just drag that down for right now. So let's see, what do we want to do here? If something is equal to something else, that's what we want. So we want to say not equal to. We want to say if it's, nope, we don't want this one. But we're close. One of these has got less than or equal to, and I just have to remember which one it is. It's been a bit since I've looked at this, so. Yeah, that's all it has is less. There is a way to check for, so we want to say if that guess is less than. Now I have to remember how we do that. That wouldn't be colors, it wouldn't be lists. Where I'm talking about lists yet. It's not, I don't think it's text. It doesn't compare texts. We don't want to compare text, so we want to compare numbers. I don't think that that's right. I think it's got to be under math. There we go. We want the less than. So, if our text is less than, and what is it less than? Well, we want this to be get random number. Don't want to duplicate all of it. Yeah, I can throw that out. Now this is not going to fit in here, but I want that to become a, I gotta remember how to do this now. If it's less than get, that's what we want, there it is. So if it's less, we made a guess that was too low, okay? So what we want to do is we want to set the label. So again, we've come in here, we've made a guess, it's too low. So we want this label to say something like the guess was too low. All right? And the way that we're going to do that is then, this is our result. That's what we want, is we want the result. So our result text, that isn't going to fit, but that's what we want to do. Oh, we want to, I'm sorry, we want to set our result text. So we want to set the result text Okay? We want to set that to some text. We'll make it blank for now, and we'll fill it in ourselves. And we want that to say, the guess was too low. Okay? But you know what would be nice is if we're going to go to all this trouble. So we're putting down here the guess was too low, but we still have that number in here. What if we now made that number disappear and put our cursor right there so we can make another guess? We want to make the game as fun and as easy for a person to play as we possibly can. All right, so let's do that. How are we going for time here? All right, so we're going to have to be broken into yet another lecture. That's okay. So we want to set that, and we're going to quickly write another procedure here. I'm going to do a little bit more work, and then we're going to call it a period here. So this is going to be called clear text box. All right, and what we want to clear with a text box is we want to set our hint, where's our guess? We want to set our text to nothing. So we want it to be totally blank, because that's going to clear out the text box. All right, so that's the first part. But we also want to do one more thing. We want to make sure, we want to go back to that same where we're entering the guess, and there's something that's called request focus, which means I want to put the cursor in there. All right, so that's what I want to do. So if the guess was too low, we want to put something into our result, and then we want to call this, clear text box. So we want to do two things. So we want to call clear text box. All right. Otherwise, and this, it's getting a little long, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to put it down in here. That'll actually go in here. Let me duplicate this one. I didn't do that correctly. Delete block. No. Grab this whole block and duplicate that. There we go. So otherwise, if it's greater than the number, we want to put that the guess was too high. Whoops. So I want to change that low to a high. Come on. All right. And again, we want to call clear text box. Otherwise, we guess the number correctly. That's what we want anyway. So if that's the case, then we want to set the result to you guessed the secret number. And then we want to clear the text box. All right. Now, this is by no means finished. We're done with where we're going to it right now. And I have no idea if we even tried to run this now, if it would work, because there's stuff in here that's missing. All right. One thing I want to do, and I wanted to show you this, and then I will call this a lecture. All right. I'm going to move these down. What I want to do is I want to make sure that I've got a random number generated as soon as the program starts. So I'm going to go to my screen 1, and there is an initialize, which says when you start the program up, and I'm going to tell it to come in here then, and I'm going to tell it to call generate random number. All right, so call generate random number, and do that. And we're actually, I think, maybe I'm wrong here, but I think we're almost finished. Let me go a little longer. I hate going too long, but let's put in our two buttons. All right, so we've got our check guess, and if that's the case, we want to call calculate guess. because they've just made a guess. So we've got to calculate it to see whether or not it's correct. And the other one we want to do is our generate new random number. So when that's the case, we want to call generate random number. All right, now it's possible I've missed something. Well, sure wouldn't be the first time, and it won't be the last. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my designer window, and I'm going to bring up the emulator, and let's try playing. All right, so we'll guess 50. It's right in the middle. Check the guess. It was too high. All right, so I know it's less than 50, so let's take half of that, 25. That was too high. How about 12? That was too high. How about 6? That's too high. How about 3? That's too high. This doesn't sound right. How about 1? Okay, there's a problem in our code, because 1 is the smallest number. All right, so it's not generating the number for us. But we are really making progress on this. You can see what's happening here. All right? Right now, it's like everything is too high, so something is goofed up in the logic. I'll come back in the next lecture, and we'll fix that. Okay?